All right, everybody, welcome back to On Cycle. I know it's been a little while. It's been about a month. So we're here. Robbie and I were talking about it a little off time. We were like, hey, you know what's coming up soon? Ooh, audition time.
Yep.
I saw a lot of packets being dropped and everything else. So we decided we were going to do an episode today, a two-parter. So this will be part one of part two on auditions, how to prepare for them kind of before, and then auditions for the during. You know, like when you get there, you get into camp and you go, this is what's going on.
Yeah, right. Sort of what to do right now, and then what to do once you get there.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
From people that have been in the activity for a while.
Yeah, for all of us, it's been
and
around
I've done a collective. Well, no, you. I was about to say we've done a collective 1 year of DCI auditions, but no, you auditioned.
I did.
In cadets, so you've got some experience there.
I auditioned there, and obviously I made it there at the time, and just never
exactly.
marching.
So you've got experience with
so I have some of that.
portion
Yeah,
of it.
Exactly. So before we get started, you know, as always, make sure you click on the like, the subscribe. We're getting up there. We hit one of our first goals, which was 3,000 hours of view time. So thank you, everybody. We're well over 500 subscribers. We're still trying to get to that 1,000 mark, which, you know, you can help out by sending this to your friend, especially you band directors out there that love watching a show. This is a really good one for your kids and people who are getting ready to go out there and audition, to send it over to them and be like, hey, check this out. There's some good info. Obviously, if you like the info. If you don't like the info, go, these guys are terrible, and unsubscribe.
Yeah, they don't know what they're talking about.
Just leave it subscribed and just don't talk. And just don't watch us anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So do a letter. Oh, and lastly, we're on the gram now. Go look us up on Instagram. Yeah, we have a fresh Instagram account. I don't know what I'm doing with it yet, but I'm going to start throwing some stuff up there.
Yeah,
and we'll see how it goes. But you know, all the more activity is the more better for the gram for the youngins. Maybe I'll go into the TikToks, you know, and go down that
Once
road.
we figure that out, yeah.
All right, so
finally dip a toe into that.
All right, so let's get into it and get started. Episode 1, we're going to focus on preparing beforehand.
Yeah. What can you do right now up until, I think November is usually when the first camps in each camp starts? Are you right?
Camps are wild this year. Have you seen some of the audition dates for some of them? Dude, they're
Are they all over the place?
All over the place. Like some is
nothing is sacred anymore.
Some as early as like October.
Jeez.
Yeah, like there's some DCI all age groups doing October.
Oh yeah.
And then there's some DCI groups doing like mid to late December. It's wild. I think Mandarins is like mid December.
Although I guess my first camp, I'm trying to think when first audition camps were. A lot of times, you know, back in the day, they would have like a month worth of like first audition camps, and then the callback camp was later to give people a big range of when to audition.
So that leads us to the first really good point where we talk about this is doing your research, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of kids that come up to us all the time and they go, hey, I want to march DCI next year, you know, world class, and I want to go out. I want to figure out what's going on. Where do I start? What do I do? What's going on? And Robbie brought up a really good point. I really think the first thing you do is do your research.
Yep.
Right, which is kind of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, right. We've mentioned this sort of before in terms of tips for surviving drum corps.
Oh yeah, episode 5.
Yeah, put a link in the description.
Link in the description, episode 5.
So yeah, when you make it to a DCI, into a DCI corps because of our phenomenal advice here, you can go back to the top 10 tips for surviving drum corps episode, and you can watch that.
Yep, exactly.
And we'll give you the full sort of care package. But so obviously, you know, I think everyone who goes into and is thinking about auditioning for drum corps, most of us know generally a little bit about the corps.
Sure.
Right? But I think a great first step is going, how much do you actually know about not just the end product that you see, right? The final show on the field, which is important, right? But also how the corps functions, what kind of attitude it has, and whether or not it sounds like it's a place that you would want to march.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody has a like, and we've talked about this in episodes before, like a feel that you want to go with. If you're a jazzy person and you just happen to love Mandarins last year, they're not always like a jazzy kind of corps. Last year it was very that way, but if you only watched them last year for the first time and said, wow, that was awesome, they may have a very different vibe next year, you know, because they tend to kind of move around. Whereas like if you go to some place like the Blue Devils, they're always playing something jazz, right? So so if you like that, or if you like, you know, ground and pound power, like, you know, you just want to play as loud as humanly possible, maybe Phantom's the way to go, because that's what they've been doing the last few years, right? So don't look at just this year's group, but look at, you know, all of the, maybe a couple of years before this year and go, hey.
Like, especially at least back to 22, I would say this year.
Yeah, I would say
the
that's
past
a good move.
3 seasons.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them made big changes between that. But yeah, go back even further. But I think the last 3 years will give you a good sense of trajectory of like, what can I kind of hopefully expect?
What's the vibe I'm looking for? And that's kind of the next thing. So not only is it a musical vibe, but it's an emotional vibe, right? It's what does if you, RIP cadets, but if you were a cadets fan, you were like, I want to march those shows. Those guys were so rigid and so like robotic about everything they did. It was not relaxed. It was, I mean, they were the epitome of East Coast, and the Blue Devils are the epitome of West Coast.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is that. It is that drastic of a difference of an experience. So if you are not looking for rigidity, okay, it's my great word of the day. If you're not looking for it to be rigid and be like really like, because I think Carolina Crown has that a little bit right now. If you're not looking to have that kind of feel, because it is for some people, and when I was 20, 19 years old, that was my feel. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to look like a robot, and be awesome and tall and proud. That was my whole vibe. That was not my vibe now. I would be the exact opposite of that now.
Yeah, right.
So like you need to understand kind of what vibe you want to go for. Are you the kind of person that's going to do that? Or is it the environment of maybe a little bit more relaxation? And when I say relaxation, very mildly, obviously. But is that more of the vibe that you're going for? Because that's so important to the experience that you're going to have and the people that you're going to audition in front of in a couple of weeks or months. So that's a really big researchable thing, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely that's definitely something I did when I was auditioning for corps. Is I looked specifically at like what corps had a show design philosophy that I vibed with, right? I didn't want to march in a corps that was not going to do a show that I wanted to perform.
Yeah, right.
Right? Because even if it's a good corps and you make it in, if you don't like the kinds of shows they do, you're less likely to have, a fun summer.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing based on vibe I think you can do is I think you can look for two things. One, look for membership testimonials. If you just go on any like forum-based and comment-based website, and you're on a Facebook group or a Reddit, subreddit or anything like that,
right,
somewhere where members can like talk about their experience, read through and just get like a feel for what it's like to be a member at that corps.
Absolutely.
Right? Or watch some of our previous interviews where we talked about it a little bit.
That's
right?
very true, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, listen to what people have to say. And the second thing I think you can do is see if you can find videos of rehearsals or camps to see not only what the members are doing, but what the staff teaches like.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right?
That's a very good
like
point.
we've talked about, we've seen an occasional video of some like rehearsal from a top 12 group. And like we've talked about it, I'm like, oh, wasn't it so cool how like this staff member was doing this? Or like this was the energy that the staff brought to every rehearsal, right?
Right.
You watch those, it gives you a good idea of what your educational experience is going to be like, and you can see whether or not, you vibe with it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's such a great point. Like if you look, I mean, there's two really great examples of that. It's like Gino. Gino teaches really aggressively. When he stands in front of the horn, he's just like, he has a very do your job because I already trained you to be great. Right. Versus Matt Harloff, who stands in front of you and loses his mind, which I love that energy when he conducts.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's such a powerful energy. That again, some people like that, some people do not like that. You need to understand kind of where your emotions lie in all that, because it does. We cannot stress the billions of years that I've marched drum corps. When vibes change and instructors come in, or just the general overall feel of an organization adjusts a little bit, it makes it very, very good, or just a lesser experience because you're dealing with those things and you're. Why is he doing it like that? Why is he saying things like this? Why are they always yelling at me? Because I don't like being yelled at. And some people are fine with that, some people are not. So
yeah, exactly right.
The testimonial thing I love. Go and when you said that, go look at other members' testimonials. Go reach out. If you're on a social media platform,
honestly, yeah.
There's not a person in drum corps that if you reached out and said, "Hey, I read your thing. I really appreciated what you had to say. Can I ask you a question or two about your organization?"
Yeah.
Every single person will be like, "What do you want to know?"
People, drum corps kids love talking about drum corps. We made a whole podcast just to do that.
That's true.
Right?
It is.
Yeah, exactly. Reaching out's a great idea, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it might feel weird, but the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to ignore you.
There are tons of people who have already reached out to me through this podcast and said, "Hey, can you do this? Can you talk about that stuff?" And I end up having like a 3-day conversation with them. You know, I'm like, "Oh, dude, where would you march? Oh, that's awesome. I love this show. What do you think? What's Reading like? What's this like? Can you give me some advice?" I'm like, "Heck yeah." I've made some good internet friends so far. Doing those things. I'm an old, dirty, crusty man who's grumpy and busy with my life, and I still find time to talk about those things. So research is really, really a great thing.
Yeah, because that will set you up I think the best for
It really does.
success.
We started with that because it really is that important.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first. You got to decide where you're going.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to decide where you're going.
Right.
So
I think second topic now.
Yeah, let's move on.
Once you pick your core or cores, please. I'll add one more point to the
that's a
research
good
one.
point. Yep, go ahead.
Please consider multiple cores and consider a spread. Right.
Yeah.
I know all of you want to march blue coats. Right? Everyone wants to march blue coats. I wanted to march blue coats when I was marching, but
They weren't that good when I was marching.
Yeah.
They were like 12th place.
Yeah.
If they made finals.
So very easy in for you, if you made it, cadets especially. Right? If you like, don't be afraid to audition there or at Blue Devils or at Crown or any other top tier core, but like have a spread.
Yeah.
Right? Aim for like top of the pack, middle of the pack. Near the
It's
bottom
like-
of finals, or depending if you don't have any drum corps experience and you're just looking for some, look for some, semi-finalist world class cores.
Or even small age groups. We talk about that all the time.
Exactly, yeah,
If
all
there's
age
all
groups,
age groups
right?
in your area that are a little bit easier for you to go, there's great experience there too.
Yeah,
But yeah,
right.
it's like applying to colleges. You don't apply to one college, your dream college.
Exactly.
and
You have Reach. You have
Right.
what is it? It's like Reach, the ones that you expect to sort of get in, and then your fallback ones, right?
Okay.
Aim for that, right? Do an honest assessment of what you think your marching skill level is, right? And think like, these are the cores I think I can get into. These are the cores I think I might be able to get into. That would be a bit of a stretch. And then these are ones that I'm pretty sure I could do, right?
Yeah,
And then have like one or two in each.
Yep,
right?
I totally agree. It's
And luckily, there's few better years than this year to. I mean, from what I can tell on the field and from membership testimonials, anywhere you go in the top like 15, you're going to get a
have
great
a great experience.
educational experience. Yeah.
Yep. So
All right, now
anyway,
officially, once you pick your cores that you want to audition for, you've got to prepare the technical skill set that you actually need, right?
Right. Absolutely.
First thing I think we're going to focus on is music.
Yeah.
Right. How to prepare musically. Disclaimer: we're both brass people, so I mean, you can some of the stuff this might apply to horn line and guard people, but it's mostly we're gonna have the most specific.
If you're in the
advice
drum
about
line,
brass.
just do 8 on a hand for the love of God. I don't
Just
know.
play with a metronome, for God's sakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we are not proficient in those topics. And
Yeah.
there's a ton of podcasts out there that talk about those things.
Yeah, for real. Yeah,
so
and
go
I'm sure they've got
find
some
them.
great advice.
They have some great advice out there, specifically for the drummers. There's lots of drummer podcasts out there.
Yeah.
The guard. I'm going to save that as a maybe. I got maybe a tiny surprise
there's
I might
much-
have.
yeah.
I might have a little surprise for
Heck yeah.
guard, but that'll be another episode.
Heck yeah.
So we'll kind of focus towards the just the general music approach, which is
It's a general music.
general music. It's so stupid.
No.
So when you're obviously you have to have an instrument that you're prepared on, right?
Yeah.
If you're one of the 4 or 5 major instruments in the horn line that you already play and that's your primary, I would assume that is the road you're going down, right? If you're a trumpet player, you're going to audition on trumpet.
Yeah.
If you're going to move away from that instrument for whatever reason, like trombone to baritone, that's a fairly easy move, but make sure your fingers are in time. You need to pick up the instrument.
Practice your finger dexterity.
Yeah, you need to pick up the
baritones got me
instrument.
run sometimes.
The instrument that you're going to prepare on. So that's number one. Like if you're a baritone player and you're like, I don't think I can make baritone, so I'm going to audition on tuba. Don't just show up and be like, well, nobody's going to be here on tuba. When I auditioned for cadets, there were like 30 tuba players.
And cores are only marching 12.
Right.
They were tubas now.
They were 12 back then too. So like you were fighting still for spots.
Yeah. Now most cores will march just 12. You're fighting for spots, right?
Yeah,
There's
you're
lots of good tuba
right,
players
exactly.
out there.
So that's one of the. I would be my first advice. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're auditioning on, go pick up that instrument and actually play it.
Yeah.
If you're not already doing that.
Yeah. And if you're one of those people that's let's say you're a woodwind, you're going for like an all age group or an open class group or something that like generally people that are completely new to a brass instrument can get into. I would recommend more than likely, like you can obviously pick up like mellow or tuba if you want to, but you'll probably have a better chance if you do trumpet or bari
baritone, yeah.
for the pure fact that there's just more spots.
There's just more of them. Exactly.
Yeah, there's 24 spots in a world class core, right? Or 20, or as opposed to 12 or 16 for mellow and tuba. Mellophone is probably the most competitive and difficult brass section to get a spot in any given
Yeah.
horn line.
It's very technically difficult. And
there's a lot of very good players just vying for less spots.
Right.
So that just
And then
increases
also one of the
competition.
things that happens too is that a lot of trumpet players that are pretty skilled, if the corps has too many skilled trumpet players, they may move them down to mellophone and let them play mellow one because it's pretty close. To, not the same thing.
I know a couple people,
similar.
at least 2 people that auditioned on trumpet and got moved to mellophone and marched there.
Well, what's this?
We've got Ethan. Yeah,
Ethan,
he
yeah.
marched
Cadets.
mellophone at Cadets and Crown.
Yeah.
And then our friend Mikey Renzulli, who marched with me in
Yeah, and
15, 16. He got moved to mellow at Scouts.
Yep, sometimes that happens. And I've seen tuba players moved up to baritone.
Yeah.
Because they had too many good tuba players, and they're like, "Hey, we're marching youths. Like, if you go someplace like Phantom, they were like, listen, you're strong enough, so just go carry this thing and play.
Go honk on a
just
youth.
play B flat as loud as you can the
Yeah.
whole show. You know, so so that's an option. But so moving into more of the technical
once
things,
you pick your instrument.
I think one of the best pieces of advice that I can give a brass player is you need to put your face on the mouthpiece every day leading up to auditions. More for anything else, like obviously it's training and you should be doing something, you know, in your brass manual, in your book and wherever you're at, whatever you're working, but it's about strength too, not volume, but can you play your instrument for 12 hours a day?
Yeah,
right?
it's endurance because a lot of times you'll have like a full block and a half of brass, and then it's like go audition.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
I know. I was getting a little chopped when I did my etudes, you know, live.
Yeah. You have
missed some of the high notes, and I felt very frustrated.
Yeah. You have no idea when a staff person, if you go to one of the bigger corps like Blue Coats or I'll say top 6, you may have 400. You know, brass players going to the camp that you're going to, right?
Yeah.
And the staff has to sit down and evaluate each one of you individually, which means that throughout the entire weekend, they're just going to be pulling people constantly. You have no idea when you're going to go. And it could be Sunday afternoon after you've been beaten to death, right? Not only physically, but mentally, but your face is just chopped out. So building some endurance ahead of time, and it doesn't have to be with the horn on it. You can just do basic mouthpiece buzzing, right?
Yeah.
If you're a young man or woman who's driving back and forth to their job, like I used to have an hour and a half commute to work every day, and I would keep a mellophone mouthpiece in my cup holder, and a spare one that I had, and I would do lip slurs, and that's all I did. You know, once a day, you know, driving up and back and forth, or I'd put on the radio and I would just do dumb stuff like try and play what I was listening to.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Play
that's
along.
which is another good
with your
advice for
mouthpiece.
ear training, right?
Yeah.
Can you match pitch just with a mouthpiece to something? Doesn't matter what it is. It really doesn't matter. When you're not trying to train technically, right? If you're just trying to put some time on their face,
Yeah. Into the technical stuff, the specifics of best things to practice. I have a lot of potential advice on this.
Okay.
First of all, obviously, I think you should tailor what you're specifically working on to whatever is in the brass packets that you get.
Yeah.
And that's a good advice.
Always.
But usually they're going to cover the same sorts of things.
Yeah.
Number one thing, especially if you are new to brass, but I think also just if you're, you know, an intermediate player or even an advanced player in general, like, I think the number one thing you can do on brass to help develop your sound to be DCI worthy is just long tones.
Oh yeah.
Just
Absolutely.
play long tones.
Yeah.
I know they're boring, but you know, sometimes work is boring. That doesn't mean that, you know, it's sometimes, you know, that's what you got to do. Right. And long tones are going to develop, right, your endurance, like you said,
such an endurance chop. Yep.
And if you do long tones, especially with a tuner, which play with a tuner.
Yeah.
I don't like playing with a tuner, but I make myself do it
I hate
because
it too. I can't stand it.
but especially if you're doing long tones, it will teach you how to hold something in tone and not let, you know, your tone waver and everything.
Right.
And just focus on intonation and tone production.
Yep.
Like that's the most basic thing, right?
Yep.
You can play technically, but if your tone is crappy, that's, you know, a little bit harder to.
Yeah. I would say the first 5 minutes to 7, maybe even 10 minutes, depending on what your instrument is, should be focused on that. When you're picking up your horn, you're like in your band room or wherever you're home or whatever you're doing. I think it's incredible advice because it is it is the most boring thing on the planet.
Yeah.
But it really does produce the best results.
Yeah. Like I love just, you know, I get my horn out and I'm going to play it and I just play some like low C's, you know, on mellophone or
just
trumpet.
humming.
Yeah, just low C's and then down to like some pedals and like working down the scale, like keep it nice and open. Pitch bends are, I think, a great one.
Work on relaxing the face as much as you can. You know, that's what low tones are for, is learning just how to continuously push air while also keeping a buzz and a relaxed sense.
Yeah.
Right. Without blowing your tone all over the place.
I learned a great thing. I first heard this in Blue Knights, and we when Victor was caption head at
Reading.
Buccaneers, at Reading, he did it a little bit, and then we do it a little bit now. Even if you've never heard of the exercise, it's air to buzz. I think it's one of the best things for building like a nice, open, relaxed tone. Where you literally just take your mouthpiece. You can technically do it on mouthpiece or the horn. I tend to prefer to do it on the horn, but it can be done on either. And you just get like, set your embouchure and just blow nice, like warm air with no buzz out of it. And then like very slowly, speed up your air and sort of set the, the aperture of your lips to start just like the tiniest buzz. At Blue Knights, we would talk about our caption head would talk about getting like just a buzz, just in the very center of the lips, like the tiniest buzz, and then slowly like firming up just enough with no extra tension to like spread the buzz to the entire face. Right? There's that nice, clear like, how do you go from no tension to like just the right amount of pressure to produce a tone?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Those are they really are the very quality building blocks of having great performance. If you're a young music major and you are looking to go into, like if you're 18, you're getting ready to go into college and maybe you haven't had a professional teacher yet and you're just a pretty decent high school player, when you look at soloists like, I always look at the baritone soloists because they're always the ones that impress me the most is like you're looking at SEV 18 and you look
just
at
listen to that on the way up here.
and
baritones
the Phantom
so
solo from last year, the trombone and baritone solo from last year.
Very technically skilled,
but if you just listen to the tone and
pretty.
the quality of air and movement, and if you watch them too, it's like they're effortless. Those four soloists in those two groups are effortlessly playing what they are playing, and they are some of the hardest solos that you will ever see come out of baritone and DCI history.
Yep.
And it's just relaxed. Right?
Yeah, learn how to play with a relaxed sound. It's so important.
It's hard, which is funny because it shouldn't be.
Exactly, right?
It shouldn't be hard, but it's very difficult, right? So when you're out there practicing your music stuff, and the thing is that it only becomes easy the more that you do it. And this is me being hypocritical and a half because I never practice.
I know, right? I've started picking up my flugel and being like, I'm making myself practice. I'm not showing up to membership day with fresh chops.
Yeah, without having played. I'm probably going to do the same thing. I'm probably going to pick up my horn here a little bit and do some things.
But I focus on, because if you show up and you don't have good tone, no one cares how loud or high or fast you can play.
Correct.
You can't do it with good tone. Right?
They will train you how to play fast. You are going to play reps a million freaking times in a show. You are going to play loud. They will get you to play loud. But if you do not have the ability to relax your face and play with good tone, then there's that's something that's very difficult to teach.
Yeah,
right.
It's the most immediate thing that you can do that shows staff that you have a mature approach to your horn.
You were exactly the word I was looking for.
Yeah, which is really, you really want to establish that I'm approaching this the right way.
Right.
Even if I'm not doing everything perfectly, I'm thinking about it. I'm not just going.
That's why. Honestly, that's a lot of the reason why woodwind. What do they call them?
Converts?
Yeah, converts. Thank you. Woodwind converts are always so. They're either great or they struggle, right? And most of the time, they're great because because woodwind playing is a relaxed playing. There's not a ton of tension in woodwind playing. There's a little bit because there's tightness in the embouchure.
Just
on the
embouchure, but in general,
the center is usually pretty relaxed.
And especially on like a saxophone or clarinet, you can't close it down too much.
Right.
Or else you
have this big wide open throat and there's lots of warm air going through it because that's how you play with good tone on a saxophone or a clarinet or anything else is warm air. So it's the same general idea. You just, those basic concepts are really, I think, musically the best way to go. So when you're preparing and because we're talking about practicing before showing up to auditions, number one, get the book, then look at the book. Make sure don't walk in there never looking at the exercises.
Yeah.
All right.
Because you have to show up knowing the exercises, right?
You have to know the exercises. And in this day and age, that's great. Like when I auditioned, that's not the way it was. Like you showed up and they handed you a packet. Because
they couldn't just email blast it out to everyone.
It didn't work that way. So you have the ability right now to pick up the book and memorize it up and down. Like if you're practicing anything, practice that, but practice it with good tone. Don't worry about speed just yet. I would stay away from speed and work up to where you need to be. But If you're not playing well slowly, then you're not going to play well quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to focus and a good way to stay. And if you walk into an audition and go, hey, the only thing I can do this thing at is 120 right now, but it is the most perfect 120 exercise you've ever heard, they are going
A
to
lot of
respect
corps will
that.
work with that. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. Speed is something that can be trained pretty quickly, and
Yeah.
that's just through repetition. So if you're going to focus on things, try not to focus on being perfect. Just be great at the basics and what you're going to do moving forward, and that you have to practice, and you have to just put time on the face on the mouthpiece as much as you can.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know?
Like I would say in terms of like after that, right? Because we basically gave two major pieces of advice, right? Lots of time on the mouthpiece
Mhm.
and just with horn on face, right? And then long tones and tone production. After that, because obviously you don't just do that necessarily. I mean,
right.
it will give you a very nice sound, but
Yeah.
you know, there's obviously other parts of the horn. Next things that I would say are the thing that I worked on to learn the baritone was long tones and lip slurs,
Mm.
right?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
nice, easy lip slurs, especially again, if you're learning the horn, just do some nice, simple lip slurs, right? Go just like B flat to F to B flat,
Right.
right? And then down to a pedal. And then, you know,
Yeah.
next valve, just like nice and easy. They don't have to be super extreme. Focus, like we said, on like good tone and connecting the notes and all that good stuff. Lip slurs are one of the best things you can do to train your face.
And they're great too to work with a tuner, so that you
Yep.
can see that you're hitting the partial as you're going
Correctly,
through
yeah.
it correctly, you know, and taking a pause maybe even at one. Like, don't do lip slurs don't do 16th note lip slurs. Great, cool. I'm glad you can move through them fast. Can you do lip slurs and half notes at 100?
Yep.
You know, you know, can you
Yeah.
do them and hold them and find the pitches correctly and move between them accurately? That means more than go, oh, like, okay, great.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like, okay,
And
I'm
it
glad you
doesn't-
can go fast. Good job,
Yeah.
buddy.
It's also great for warming up, I think.
Yes, also good for warming up.
And then after that, like that, once you got those basics things down, right, then focus on some dexterity, do some scales, do some chromatics, focus on articulation.
Then you get into your district audition, college audition type stuff, right?
Exactly,
Do you know your
yeah.
scales? Can you know all those things too? And you don't have to be perfect at them, but those are basic things that you can work on while you're working on those
Yep.
the very, very basics of what we're talking about.
Yeah. And then
so
I think, do you have any last piece of advice on music? I have one more thing.
I have one more thing, but it bleeds into the physical. So
Okay.
go ahead. You go. With
I'll say
yours.
one more thing. This really applies to both music and visual stuff.
Don't take mine.
What?
Don't
I
take
know-
mine. Don't take
Oh,
my
I
answer.
don't know. You might.
Go ahead.
This is going to be stressful, and we all hate to do it, but record yourself playing and listen back to it, right?
that's a good
a
one.
lot of you will have to do that if you're doing a video audition anyway,
Right.
but do it more than that, right? These like phones that we have that have a camera and a decent microphone on
Right.
them
Wild.
are one of the best
Yeah.
self-reflective tools that we've got.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
For anything, but especially for moving and playing, just record yourself and listen back to it, and you can delete the video right after. But
Yeah.
just think like, what did I do here? What do I sound like? I can't tell you how many times we've recorded like a video assignment, and I'll listen back and I'll be like, oh, I'm doing that there.
Yeah, yeah. I
Oof,
do the same
yeesh.
thing. I'm like, oh, now I know I'm getting yelled at every weekend. Okay,
Yeah.
makes way more sense.
Yeah.
you know,
Right. It's a great tool, and I know it sucks, but it's a really
yeah. It's
just
a great,
grit your teeth and do it.
yeah. It's a great tool too to have an honest assessment of going. This is what I think I'm hearing while I'm playing. And then you listen and you go, that is not at all what I was hearing.
Exactly,
So then
yeah.
you can look and go,
It
maybe
reveals
I need to
things.
adjust my ear a little bit. You know, like, am I listening to things that are a little more sharp, a little more flat? Like, do I really understand where pitch center is? You know, as I'm
Yeah.
moving through and doing lip slurs and things like anything else like that. Articulations, are they all the same length? You know, what am I doing with those? That am I really
Yeah.
doing what I think I'm doing? Right.
Yep.
So, that being said,
Mhm.
so we're going to move on to the third thing, which is the visual aspect.
Yeah. The visual side
Right.
of prep.
Which is I will caveat into my last piece of musical thing is that when you are practicing musically, I think it's important to be relaxed, but I also think it is important
I
while
meant
you're
to say this as well.
practicing, you need to practice the way that you are going to perform.
Yep.
Meaning you need to stand up.
Stand up
and
straight.
you have to sit up straight, and you have to have good posture, and you have to have a good frame of your body.
Yeah.
And if you record yourself while you're doing that, you can see if your horn is maintaining at that level or 10% above. You can
Yeah.
see
You
if
can
your
see
arms are
if tension is creeping in.
yes, if tension is creeping, if your arms are relaxed, are you in a good A frame? You know, whatever it is.
Yeah. Mark time while you play, right? If you're doing something with a metronome, which also play with a metronome.
Yes.
Right.
So when we talk about the visual or the physical aspect of preparing, if you show up, and again, we'll go back to number one, which is research. If you show up knowing how a corps holds their horn, knowing how do they move up and down, right? How do they put the horn up? How do they put it down? If you show up knowing all these little details, that means they don't have to teach you that. Right. That means not only that too, you're going to stand out because you're going to look good. Yeah. Right. And you're if nothing else, you're going to look like all the vets that are there auditioning. Yeah,
you're going to look like you belong.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to look like you fit in there. So I think figuring those things out, since we're moving right from music into the physical things, is let's start with just your arms and your shoulders and your head and those things.
It's exactly the very first thing I was going to bring up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've talked before. Again, this is going back to like, all you that want to audition, especially if you're aiming for like a really top level corps. Any of those corps that have hundreds of brass players auditioning, they don't make final cuts, but any staff there can basically tell you who's got a good shot to be in and who isn't from the very first call to set.
Yep, absolutely. Right? 100%.
As soon as everyone brings their horns up to set or goes to playing, you can immediately tell who is here to fight for a spot and who is just here because they want to march but don't know how to actually prepare for it.
Correct. Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah, very first thing that you should do, right? If you find, like you said, if you're in your research phase and you find video or footage of other people playing, find a mirror and look at how you hold your horn. Yep. Right.
Yep. Put your phone out. Record yourself.
Yeah, even just put your phone in selfie mode and put in the corner and look and say, right, how are my shoulders? Are they relaxed? Am I standing tall? Am I leaning back or hunching or anything? Are my elbows, at the right sort of height? Right. Anytime you see any of these higher level corps and they're just at a normal set, they look incredible, right? Yep. As our Horn Sergeant Matt Heckman, I think, brought back from Glassmen, the phrase 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Yeah. Right.
Love it.
That's how you want to look.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you show up and you just kind of go no insulting high schoolers out there, but if you go to like high schooler set, right, where you're just kind of holding your horn, a staff member is going to see you and immediately they're going to be like, well, this person, how much do they really want to be here?
Right. If you remember, like, again, if you're a senior in high school, or maybe a junior in high school or fresh into college now, and you remember this old exercise, they used to call it the Hindu exercise. I don't do it anymore because I guess it's culturally inappropriate or whatever.
I don't know why it was called the Hindu exercise in the first place.
I have no idea why either. But it's
probably
probably came from India. I don't know. Who knows? But
maybe it was
either way,
taken some kind of weird influence.
The idea of building your body up piece by piece and collapsing it piece by piece. Yeah. The idea, and most high school kids, they just go, whatever, I don't know why I'm doing this. The idea is so that you can feel each part of your body, so that way when you feel out of alignment or you're like, why am I not looking the way I'm supposed to? I know, it's my shoulders. It's my neck.
Building body awareness.
It's my upper back. It's my lower back. This is what I'm doing. Body awareness is such an important thing.
Yeah. And I think it's honestly the biggest thing that I see lacking in especially younger, newer members to drum corps.
Absolutely. 100%.
They'll be like, lift up out of your hips, and people are still just sitting back. You just don't know. Right? So to build that awareness in yourself is one of the most beneficial things you can do.
So ahead of time, before you're doing that, I think is probably, besides the visual thing, holding your horn, because we're not talking about just playing while moving. We're talking about just the visual aspect of things too. We're talking about marching and all the body that is, pretty much required now. Yeah. If you do not know how to separate your body parts, and you really don't know what those strengths feel like, or what it feels like to raise just your arm and not, like I see people all the time, they raise their arm and the other shoulder goes up. Yeah. Like why?
Or how it feels to go into a plie without dropping your body forwards or aligning.
My favorite thing that I steal from Lydia all the time is don't let the little man fall out of the elevator.
Yeah, don't let the little man fall out of the elevator when you're
just a little man in your tummy, right?
Yeah, and you're not doing a barbell squat. Yeah. You're doing a plie.
Yeah, if you're plieing down and your body's leaning over, did your little man fall out of the elevator? And I was like, that's the weird thing that I never I was like, oh. And how my plies are like 10 times better now. And that was like 3 years ago that happened, right?
Yeah. I was like the one that I think someone was like, imagine your hips, or there's a bowl of cereal on your head.
Oh, okay.
You don't want to spill the cereal.
Yeah, yeah. It's like those little things matter so much.
Yeah.
Right. If you can't do them, and here's the thing: don't think that you can do them. Right. Know that you
Yep.
can. Right. So we talk about recording in the mirror. Right.
Yeah.
You need to know that. Have your best friend come in and watch it. And hopefully you go out to audition for drum corps with your buddy. You know.
Yeah, you're bringing your buddy
whoever your
along.
best buddy is. You know. Which is a great experience in and of itself. If you don't do that, you know, then you need to find somebody to kind of give you that. Maybe your band director, maybe again, have your mom or dad do it. I don't know if they don't care about that kind of stuff or not. You know, if I went to my dad, he'd be like, "What the heck? No, go away." You know, but my point is
like,
that
yeah, like ask other people in your band or like vets or staff while you're at band practice. I went and in my sophomore year, I just come back from doing, you know, a tour with Blue Knights, and we had a friend of ours who was auditioning for Cavies. And like a friend of a friend or something was like, "Hey, he's about to go record his audition. Do you want to come over since you marched drum corps?"
Right.
And I went over and, you know, helped him out and gave him some pointers. And he's pretty darn solid, so I didn't really have to say much. But like,
right.
but that's the right move. It's being like, right? People love to talk about drum corps. People also love to help out with drum corps stuff. Just ask one of your buddies, just like, "Hey, can you get a look and be like,
right.
does this look good? What pointers can you give me?"
Yeah, it's so important
Right.
too, you know, and even as you're going down the body, like, do you know what kind of style they march in, right? What's going to happen? I heard Cavaliers are going back to the bicycle leg next year. Yeah, I heard that.
so.
I hope so too. You know, and Phantom does it now too, and they didn't do that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, or 3 years ago now. But, you know, do you know what that looks like? If you come from, like, I've experienced many times in my life where I have kids that came from high schools that don't have competitive marching bands. They have like parade bands.
Yeah.
Right. Which is fine. There's no big deal right there. Koenig is one of them.
Really?
Steve Koenig never marched
Wow.
until he marched at Reading. And then he went to march cadets, which is wild straight leg.
Yeah, right.
But
in a pretty competitively successful year, a difficult year.
Yeah, very difficult year. And you know, but he came from a high school with they didn't have a competitive marching band. All they had was like a pep band and a parade band. You know, Governor Mifflin doesn't have a competitive marching band. So
I did not know that.
yeah, it's wild, right?
That's
and,
fun.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So if you don't know that, now he's obviously, his parents are Hall of Famers and all that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
So he grew up around drum
So he grew up around it. So he kind of understood what to do and how to do it, but he still had to learn it, right? He still had to pick it up and figure it out. You know, he marched, his rookie season was 2012. Is that right?
I think so. I think he did 12, 13, and then marched cadets in 14.
Which is a crazy hard year to come into too, because 2012 Reading that's a crazy show. It's the highest scoring DCA/DCI all age core show of all time.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, probably will be the
I
highest
can't
scoring,
imagine
because I
higher.
think there's a different scoring system.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. So, but my point is that, you know, just because you do something well at your high school, because maybe it was great, doesn't mean you're going to do the same thing well where you're going, right?
Yeah. They might aim for different things. Yeah.
Steven's talking about going to Phantom. You know, he wants to go audition not this year but next year, and they do bent leg, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's a very solid straight leg marcher, right? So you're going to have to relearn a whole new technique, even though he's going to, at that time he'll have 4 years of drum corps experience and probably be a pretty, you know, good audition. Like, somebody's going to look at him and go, this is we're going to give that person the benefit of the doubt because they have a ton of experience. But if they don't have it doing the thing, and you can't figure that out and you can't learn it a little bit ahead of time, and kind of show up with some skill,
it'll give you a leg up.
Yeah, it's going to give you a leg up.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. So you think you need to worry about those things.
Yeah.
You know what's a great idea? This is a thing that just called to me. If you're still in high school or college, go hang out with a color guard.
Oh yeah.
Do some color guard warm-ups. Right, as a brass player, because really that's what we're doing now. We're doing so much body.
We're
and
dancing
so much,
almost as much as the color guard
50%
is,
of the
right?
damn time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And again, with your research, if you're going for a group like Blue Devils, or excuse me, like Blue Coats, that do that kind of thing, where they do significant amounts of body in a very color guard centric way, you know, a very dance centric way, you need to understand how to do those things, right? So, and having, again, like anything else, the more time you put into it, the better, more prepared you're going to be.
Yeah.
And every time you do it, you're going to learn something a little bit more about yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. You can't just show up and be like, I'll figure it out when I get there, because that's not the answer. Right?
Yeah. Right.
So,
and any amount of that you can prevent,
right,
is a good thing, and will give you a leg up, and will
absolutely.
make you stand out from the many people that will be auditioning for spots.
So, and I think that'll bring us all the way down to the last thing, which physically, I think, and you and I both subscribe to this because we're both big gym people.
Yeah.
But you need to put some weight and some muscle on your body in
Yeah.
different ways. And it doesn't mean you have to go get a gym membership and you have to go bonkers. Do some push-ups in your house. Do some, there's a lot of
just start
really,
running outside or taking long walks.
yes, for the love of everything, you need to be cardiovascularly prepared, right?
Yeah.
At a minimum, you have to be, you need to put miles on your legs so that your legs aren't fatigued when you go out there, so you're not beat up. Because if you go out to a 3-day audition on Friday night and with a travel, and then Saturday they're going to beat the crap out of you.
Yeah, it's
and
a long day.
and you haven't exercised in the last 10 years, then Sunday is going to be really, really difficult. And again, if you're auditioning and you're getting your one-on-one with the instructors visually and or musically, and you can't even stand up straight, what are your chances at that point, right?
Yeah.
You have to prepare the body, right? And it's just so important, and that continues on even after you make the drum corps.
Oh yeah, honestly, it almost gets more important.
Yes.
To get into the drum corps.
Absolutely.
But you do need to do a base level of physical fitness, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you're already, usually it helps a little bit if you are marching at a high school or college, because that is physical activity.
Yeah, absolutely,
right. But doing stuff right, pushing that little extra will make you once again stand out, because if you show up and you've got, in the same way that if you've got playing endurance, it'll make you stand out. If you've got physical endurance above everyone else, and at the end of the day, when everyone's kind of beat down, you're still standing tall, and you look like you can go for another 4 hours.
Yep.
Right? They're going to be like, oh, well, that person seems like they can handle it once we get to 14-hour days.
Yeah. From a physical standpoint, right? It is that staff looks at that as well. They don't just look at whether or not you can or can't do it, right? Is your body going to survive the kind of punishment that drum corps puts on it, right? Because it is very, very physically difficult. Right?
Yeah, you've got to be able to keep up with it.
If you show up and you are 100 pounds overweight or 100 pounds underweight, depending on what you are, that is not you need to either lose a couple of pounds or you need to put on some pounds, to be more of the kind of, it's not about, like, I know there's no body shaming at all in that. It's just more of a physical demand that is expected of you. And if you cannot do it, that you are a risk now, right?
Yeah, right.
You are a risk for, overheating if you are, not in good shape, or breaking if you don't have no muscle on your body and you're just a little twig, and that's fine. I'm not saying, you need to go change who you are, but there are things you can do to prepare yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a physically demanding, sport in the sense of the amount of physical demand that has, just like any other. And you need to prepare yourself for that, right?
You absolutely have to.
Because, as much as it feels unfair sometimes, at the end of the day, the drum corps has to be able to demand that of you.
Yeah. Like it's, I always say to all my soldiers and anybody else I've ever trained over the years, like, I'm sorry that genetically, you weren't the opposite of what you are right now. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Some of you might have to work harder.
Yeah. Some of you. Yeah. We all have to work hard in our own ways. Yeah. Right. And that's okay. Even the people who are, in a pretty decent shape, that doesn't mean that they're prepared. That, like, I was always pretty lean and very, I would say muscular to some extent, but there were times in there where even though I was that way, I was not prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
right.
And I would die coming to weekends and be like, oh my God, 2009 when I came back in, like, I hadn't marched in like 6 years, but I was in the Army, so I was in good shape. Yeah. But I was not in marching band shape.
Yeah, exactly. Your legs and joints weren't used to taking. Oh my God.
My first weekend, I almost contemplated not going back, because I was like, I was like, I looked at myself, I was like, I am way too old for this. My ripe age of 29 or 30 or whatever it was, whatever it was. And I mean, I just got, dude, I remember that weekend, that first weekend back, and I was like, oh, and I did nothing to prepare, other than I was like, I work out every day. Like I said, I was in the Army. I was in my 10th or 8th year of the Army. I was in great shape, I was in my late 20s. Like I was probably about your age, and I was like, I'm good, but I hadn't marched in 3 years. Yep. So I was like, oh my God, I hurt physically. And I was and that was understanding drum corps for 10 years, because I had marched 10 seasons already, or that was my 10th. I had already marched 9 seasons. So I understood everything. And I still went in there, and
your body was out of practice with that specific,
and I was still
punished,
and I was still punished for my arrogance, And it just is. You have to.
Show that would bring you down a peg. It's another hard show.
Oh, yeah, it was a very difficult show. Yeah. And I only had 5 weeks to learn it, so my whole 5 weeks was just pain. It just was terrible.
Heck yeah. We gotta suffer for our art.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So I think that's kind of as much as we can talk about with the physical. I mean, you really just need to get out there and do something. Do your research and see what kind of physical attributes the core you're going to, or the several cores you're going to go to, are asking you to do.
Yep.
And then just preparing. Like, you just need to do it and ask people to help you with that process. If
Yeah.
you don't know what to do, just ask somebody, right? Which brings us, I think, to our last thing, which is the mental etiquette and agility that you.
Yeah, the kind of attitude to bring in before
Right.
you head to a camp.
If you do not have a comfortable time walking up to somebody and saying, I need assistance, or can you help me with this? I'm doing this. I can feel this. I can see this. I can hear this. Can you assist me? If you can't do that, that is something that you can practice doing solely by just doing it, right?
Yeah.
Go out and talk to
in a lower stress environment than a drum corps camp,
then
right?
don't wait until you're at auditions and then go like, I don't understand how to do this. Why now? Why are you talking about that now? Why,
Yeah.
Did you try to do it beforehand? You're like, those kind of things will mentally destroy you going into there. You have got to be flexible emotionally, flexible mentally, and you have got to be humble in that approach.
Yep.
Because if you are not, one, everybody will see right through it. You know, the people who are your instructors are like you and I. Like, we've been doing this a million years. I can immediately see when you are a little bit out of your realm, you know, and I'm like, all right, calm down, bro. Right? I call them the Ryans of the world.
I don't want to say it,
I know.
but it's like
Ryan, you know I love you, buddy.
yeah. It's also, though, it's a common issue, especially with high school, especially if you were the big fish in a little pond, right?
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I was going to talk about, right?
I love you, Ryan.
You should show up to a drum corps camp with confidence. You should not show up with ego.
Yes. Great.
Right?
Good. It's very good words to use.
Do not show up and think that you are hot stuff and that, like, oh, well, I got a solo in my high school band last year.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to march lead trumpet at Bluecoats now.
Yep.
Right? I'm going to be a Blue Devil.
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't show up like that, right? Show up with, like, the attitude of not, I'm going to be this, you know, I'm going to be a member of this corps because I deserve it. You show up with, I'm going to be a member of this corps because I'm going to work harder than anyone else.
Yeah, that's
right?
great.
Or something like that.
Yeah, something to that effect. I always,
confidence, not ego, right?
Right.
A humble confidence is like it feels paradoxical slightly.
Yeah,
but,
no, it's exactly what it should be. Like, it's the most. I always thought it's the old JFK speech, right? Now, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, right?
Yeah.
The ego is you coming in and going, I am so good that you're going to take me.
Yeah.
Right. That's what ego is. That's me doing for you, drum corps. You need to walk in and go, I am here to assist the whole. I want to be part of the bigger picture that is this organization. And this is the skill set that I have. And this is the best that I can do right now, whatever that best is, right?
Yeah.
Because staff, that's what they want. That ultimately, at the end of the day, that is what staff is looking for, is the ability to be malleable, to want to be part of the team.
Yeah.
Not necessarily,
Team effort.
not necessarily be the greatest person there. What are you going to do in the organization? What is the organization going to gain by having your presence there? And that really does start with just your attitude and your general thought process on how you are approaching yourself and your own personality. It makes a huge difference. Such a big, I would say probably the biggest difference.
Yeah.
I watched this really great. I was watching a podcast. I don't remember what it was on. I think it was Marching Arts Network. Shout out Marching Arts Network. And they were interviewing, I'm going to get his name wrong, so I'm not going to say it. He's one of the lead guys for Phantom. And they were talking about auditions, right? And the very first thing, and I've watched several other, podcasts like you're watching right now. The very first thing they say is you just need to go in with that mindset, humbly, right? Like, come in and do the best that you can do, not believe that you're the best you are, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's, how do you recover, right? So when we're talking into the mental preparation, how do you recover? If you're practicing in front of your phone before you lead up to auditions, and every time you make a mistake, you're cursing yourself out, and you are frustrated with the process, and you are angry through that process, you are going to do that when you go to your audition.
Yeah.
You're going
Practice
to
how you perform.
Practice how you perform, right? And when you practice, you can't just turn that emotional distress off. You have to practice being emotionally distressed a little bit and frustrated
and dealing with it,
right? And going, what am I doing wrong, right? Maybe figuring out how I'm going to take 2 steps back and go, okay, this is how I'm going to approach this, right? Or, sometimes you got to reset and do these other things too. Like those are skills, just like physical and just like music. They're all skills that you have to practice and you have to train and you have to figure out how you as an individual are going to handle those things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good, place to leave off, because I think if we discuss too much more about attitude, we're going to get into
Yeah. We're going to get
next
into
episode,
we'll
right?
get to the next episode. So
yeah. So, right, we've laid out just hopefully a fairly comprehensive plan and series of bullet points and advice for how to prepare, right? And how to go into it. Obviously, then you can do as much as you can, but then you're going to show up, and camp is going to be a whole different beast than practicing.
Right.
But we've got a whole episode
Yes.
devoted to that.
Yes. The next
coming up.
episode, we're going to talk about what to do when you get to camp.
Right. What to expect, what it might look like.
Right.
Right. And what you can, again, what you can bring to the core when you show up to camp.
Yeah, right. What you should be and what they're looking for,
Yep.
really, when it's time to get there, and other things we haven't covered so far.
Yeah.
So that being the end of the episode, which is, I can't believe this is a short episode for us. We've been marathoning episodes recently.
Yeah.
If you like
2-hour episodes.
Yeah, if you like part 1 so far, and you find us helpful, again, I can't stress, send it to your friends. There's, if you're watching us on YouTube, which I'm pretty sure you are, you're listening on Spotify, like go out there and just drop it. I engage all of you. It's a call to action. We haven't done a call to action in a while.
Oh yeah.
Just a call to action to, if you enjoyed listening to what it is, don't just share it, but send it to somebody who needs it. Right.
Yeah.
And because we want to, obviously we want to be, we want everybody that wants to live the dream of drum corps to be able to live the dream of drum corps.
We talk about this podcast giving back, and hopefully this episode is one of the ways that we can.
This is 20, 30 years of experience, 40 combined.
So like this is my 10th. This is my 10th anniversary.
Is it your 10th year?
Starting,
Wow.
started in 2015. So this coming season will be
27 to 28. I don't know what the heck it is for me.
Something like that.
Some million years. So there's a lot of experience here, and we just want to give back. We want to show, and we want to share. So if you're enjoying it, again, subscribe, like, all those kind of good things. But I think we're going to stop there, and we're going to, leave it to the next episode.
Exactly. So we'll see you next time when we arrive at camps. But until then, off cycle.
Cool.